It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join News Director Paul David and News Editor Philip Catafamo as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics in Yavapai County that affect all our lives. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in studio today. We're sitting down with Yavapai County School Superintendent Tim Carter and Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell talking about the Milestones Project. For more information about this, you can go to ycesa.com. ycesa.com. That's on the Yavapai County website. It's at the bottom right-hand side of the education page is where I found it. So welcome to the studio, as always.
Thank you.
And then who wants to start? What is the Milestones Project and how old is this?
Well, I'll be happy to start. I was one of the original 5 people that started talking about this. April 20th, 1999, Columbine. Columbine was really kind of a defining factor in school safety issues. I mean, today, when you read or talk about school safety, you talk about pre-Columbine and post-Columbine. So it was a defining moment in our history, no doubt about it. And so very shortly, within days after that event, there were several of us sitting around talking about, okay, so how did this happen, and how could we try to prevent it from happening here? And that specifically was in Prescott, but now it's obviously countywide and statewide. So what we found is that you had 2 very troubled young men, and they had collectively had interactions with 11 different agencies. 11 different agencies.
We're talking about police, the school.
We're talking about police and school and other types of agencies like that. But none of those 11 agencies were communicating with each other. Nobody was talking about, well, here's what I know and here's what you know, and how can we help this family and this student? And is it a threat, and is it a real threat? So we put together, with the help of Judge Brutinel, who was the presiding judge at the time, who's now the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court, a pretty simple little model that would allow agencies to work together and to share information once the parent was notified that we had a concern, and once the parent said, yes, you have our approval. So the parent is a partner through the whole process. But effectively what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify the student that potentially could come in and blow up a school or bring guns on campus and start shooting people. I mean, that really is the type of individual we're looking for. We were able to get several agencies. All the law enforcement agencies are on board. All the schools are on board. Both of the major mental health providers in Yavapai County are very, very good supporters. The courts, probation, I mean, we can go right on down the line of people that are all understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it and working together to make it work well. And so any one of those partners can identify a student. So a parent can't come to us and say, I want to refer my child. We only take referrals from agencies. Now, that wouldn't stop that parent from going to law enforcement.
I would say, okay, what does a parent do then?
Or going to the school and saying, I want to know if this is an option for my child. Is this something that might make sense? But effectively, what we're doing at that point is we have a countywide team, and we have representatives from both sides of the mountain who will look at whatever that information is that come into us. And we do it in a really short window of time, usually within 24 hours. So if I got a notice right now that we had a potential milestone student, we would have a meeting on that student before the end of business today. And we would talk about what information we have. We would make a collective judgment on, yes, we think this is a milestone student. And if so, we would then, one of those agencies would be in contact with that parent and go through the process with the parent. If the parent said yes, and we've only had one parent in the history of this system, and it goes back to 90, to right after, it actually started late 99. So, you know, we've been doing this for a while. We've only had one parent that just said no. That's very rare.
I'm actually kind of surprised by that. I would think more parents would be like, well, you can't talk about my kid like that. That's my child. You can't say that.
Well, when they understand the why behind it, of what information that we may have that they may not have, that may very well mirror many of the same things that they're seeing at home, and they may already have that concern and never thought about how to address it. They may have the concern but not know how to try to solve it. So it's an answer to questions for a lot of parents. And the other nice thing about the system is that everything we do doesn't cost the parent a thing. I mean, these are basically free services, and many of them are in the mental health area. But it could be in other areas as well, to try to resolve whatever that issue might be. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do three things. Number one is we're trying to get better communication between all of the partnering agencies. And then as we progress, they're kept informed all along. So the school knows what law enforcement's doing. Law enforcement knows what mental health is doing. We all share that information because the parent has agreed to allow us to do that. The second thing is we're identifying kids that really need services that potentially could do great harm. We have identified some of those folks in the history of this program, where we found lists, we actually found explosives, we found firearms, there was a timeline, and again, that's not something that's going to become public information because it doesn't need to be public information, but we were able to identify the student, make the school aware, resolve the issue in a very nice way that didn't cost the parent anything, and it is a significant safety issue, and it works very effectively.
I've noticed that in our schools, Prescott Valley Place, I think, it comes to my mind, Prescott Valley Place, they always put, if you see something, say something at the bottom of their release, and I always kind of like that. We see more and more of that now where the kids are coming forward. It used to be when I was a kid, you guys were kids, if you told on another student in school, you were a snitch, you were a rat, and you were probably going to get your, kicked in school. That may be not quite as a concern anymore in schools. The kids are actually stepping forward. I see it more and more now in news stories that I write.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is now we have SROs in many of our schools, and so there's already an officer there, and hopefully they have that kind of relationship with the teachers and staff and the students where a student feels more comfortable to come in and talk. But also many of our schools now have like a silent witness program where you can call, you can come in and talk to somebody. It's all confidential.
Text.
There are even cash rewards.
Text, yeah, I saw some of the text.
I know the chief worked with Mingus to develop that type of thing. So that's becoming more and more common. One of the things that when we look back at all the school shootings that we've had and all of when Gabby Giffords was shot, for example, when they do interviews with people afterwards and they ask about that person, one of the common things that we hear is that, well, if you had have asked me, is there one person that you think might be more likely to do that than anybody else? They identify that person. Well, why didn't they come forward and say something about that?
It's none of my business. I think that's probably what you probably would hear the most.
Well,
right?
we need to break down that wall and realize that it is part of their business.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or I didn't want to be wrong.
I didn't want to be wrong.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Didn't want to overreact.
Right. I don't want to say Steve Gesell is this weirdo that lives next door to me, and then it turns out that, you're just perfectly fine. Maybe I'm the one who's got the problems, right?
Either one of those scenarios could be true.
We got to take a break. Yavapai County School Superintendent Tim Carter in studio, Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell. Website for you is ycesa.com. We're talking about the Milestones Project. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Parents, you know as well as I do, there's nothing more important than your children. Don't you love to look in their eyes and see the love? Make sure they can see that love in your eyes by having their eyes examined. You can't tell how well your kids see, but Dr. Houston at Camperdy Eye Care certainly can. Call 567-3330 to make an appointment. You'll be glad you did. Camperdy Eye Care at 567-3330. They really do care.
Turning your real estate dreams and goals into reality, I'm Claudette Johnson with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. For more than 7 years, I've helped both real estate buyers and sellers put me and my team's extensive knowledge of the Sedona and Verde Valley area to work for you. Come see a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, single-level home with a pool at 50 Sedona Street. You'll love the Sedona Red Rock views from this VOC area home. We turn your real estate goals into reality. Claudette Johnson at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services of Arizona.
Reverse mortgages have undergone a great deal of changes since 2013. They're great loans, providing flexibility, access to tax-free cash, and low interest rates. Let me help you with your quality of life and peace of mind in your retirement years, no matter how long that is. For your in-home, no-obligation consultation, contact me, 928-225-7418. That's 928-225-7418, or go to jimhostler.com. That's jimhostler.com to schedule your appointment today.
Orkin has pest control down to a science.
When your business chooses Orkin's Precision Protection Program, you get a tailored pest control program for your specific industry and environment.
Your business can benefit from over a century of experience, training, and scientific knowledge that define the Orkin man.
Maximum protection, minimum exposure, backed by one of the industry's most comprehensive guarantees.
Choose your locally owned and operated Northern Arizona Orkin and get more than an exterminator. Get an expert.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're talking about the Milestones Project, a website you can go to, YCESA. That's the Yavapai County Education Service Agency. Bottom right-hand side of the front page, as you get on there, you'll find the Milestones Project right there, YCESA.com. Tim Carter, County Superintendent, and Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell. What's your role in this, Steve?
Well, the Milestones, we call it the subcommittee, is comprised of higher level management in these different perspective disciplines: mental health, law enforcement, education, which I think is pretty cool for our county. I think larger counties, you would not be able to pull that off. Not to say it wouldn't work with people in different levels of the organization, but here, Tim's involved, I'm involved, Deborah Black is involved, and people that are decision makers essentially in these different organizations. And I think the level of responsiveness is a given, that we're going to be as responsive as we can be to drop everything and convene by phone typically first to determine whether someone meets the Milestones criteria, which quite frankly is, in my limited experience, I've only been part of it for about 2 years. It's a pretty limited number of kids that are identified as Milestones kids. There's got to be some pretty. It's got to be pretty.
We hope so, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's been really miraculous. I was telling you off camera that I did have the opportunity to convene on this side of the mountain in the Verde Valley for an 8th grade boy about a year ago, and that's been. And just watching that dialogue between the different disciplines was really magical, because it's no secret that, as Tim mentioned before, as you mentioned, some of the painful lessons that we've learned across the United States, in retrospect, no one was talking to each other. And here we are today. And Yavapai County leads, I think, by example in many different ways. Matt Force is another one in drug education. This is clearly another one that, it's not the proverbial rocket science, but it's so valuable that we get these types of commitments from different disciplines to come together. And what I saw in that one meeting, the mom came in, and you watch this dialogue, and you could still see the individual paradigms or the silos, but it was broken down rapidly by discussions and input from other people sitting at the table, all for the benefit of helping that child, but not only that child, the individuals that child impacts. Could be family members, the parents certainly, but certainly the educational environment and the students and the school. We want to ensure from everybody's perspective, but certainly from public safety, that we ensure the safety of our schools and educational environments. And I think Milestones is a phenomenal tool to do that.
What's the criteria? You guys have mentioned criteria. There's a criteria we look at to see what child needs to have this kind of, I would call it almost like an intervention, the child and the child's family. But again, it boils down to the parents. If the parents say, no, I want nothing to do with Milestones, you just leave me and my kid alone, then that's it. It's over.
Then that's it, it's over.
But we do have that criteria we still have, so everybody, since we're collaborating so well and everyone's communicating with the other, we're still keeping an eye on that potential issue that could arise.
The criteria is really a moving target, to be quite honest, because this student and the educational environment they're in and the family environment and the friends issue is unique to every individual student. So what we try to do is we really try to get the whole picture of what's going on here, not just with this child, but the environment in which they live. And that includes the school environment as well. So the criteria for 3 different kids might, in reality, be 3 different sets of criteria. But in the end, what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify the student that really, potentially, could do great harm on a campus. And so it's a very narrow gate. And because all of these are free services that we're providing to that family and to that student, we don't want to swamp the system either, because when we have mental health agencies that are going to say, we're going to pick up the bill for this. You don't have to worry about the funding of this. That's very important. Mm-hmm. And then we have other agencies like mine that take care of the administrative function and those kind of things. So the criteria all focuses on the whole child and their environment. And is this really a student that potentially has the possibility that they would do something very, very bad? And then we establish the kind of the guidelines as to how we're going to proceed, with all of the partners and the parent being partners in that process.
So once this happens, the parents say, okay, you're right, this criteria does match my kid. What happens then? What happens to that child? Did they get pulled out of the school? Because what I think about is, okay, so, wow, Tom was here yesterday, but we haven't seen him in a month, and so what the heck happened there? So you know how schools are. I mean, information spreads faster in a school than it does over the radio or text or anything else. It's swamped. So how do we keep that kid safe from having that kind of stigma when they're ready? Do they leave school for the whole duration of this, or how does it work?
Well, the reality is that's one of those things that we're going to decide based on that student and that situation. The student may have already done something on that campus, and that may have been the indicator that got people looking at the student, and they may already say, okay, we're going to long-term suspend or expel the student. Well, and if that's what they're going to do, that's their decision. That's their prerogative. They may do that. Just like law enforcement can say, we think this person violated the law, and we're going to move through a prosecution process that then goes from the police agency to the county attorney's office, who's also a partner, the probation department that's a partner, and then the judges that are partners. So it really depends on, is there going to be school discipline? Is there going to be law enforcement involvement? And in either one of those cases, the student very well may be leaving the campus. But it might not involve either one. It may simply be that group is looking at the student and saying, okay, we think that there's a likelihood here. Let's get that parent on board and let's get that person plugged into mental health services or other medical services, whatever it might be. And that might even extend to the family. Because sometimes what happens with a child is coming from the trigger of that may be a family member or a friend. And so it doesn't have to involve any kind of charges. It doesn't have to involve school discipline. So each of those really kind of have a different model that we're going to follow. And it's unique to that student and their story.
Okay, let's take a break. Yavapai County School Superintendent Tim Carter in studio, Cottonwood Police Chief Steve Gesell. Again, that website is ycesa.com. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Getell and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Getell's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Getell's High Desert Mechanical, heating, air conditioning, and plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettelsHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle, get Gettels.
Hi, this is Greg at Verde Solar Power. You know, Arizona has lots of clean, renewable sunshine, and we want to help you take advantage of it with our quality solar installations, and we offer to beat any written offer on a residential solar electric system. So bring us your electric bill and let us show you how solar power will save you money. We're located conveniently here in the Verde Valley and are dedicated to helping the valley go solar. So remember, the energy solution comes up every morning.
So I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
Orkin has pest control down to a science.
When your business chooses Orkin's Precision Protection Program, you get a tailored pest control program for your specific industry and environment.
Your business can benefit from over a century of experience, training, and scientific knowledge that define the Orkin man.
Maximum protection, minimum exposure, backed by one of the industry's most comprehensive guarantees.
Choose your locally owned and operated Northern Arizona Orkin and get more than an exterminator. Get an expert.
Welcome back to Countywide. Just a few minutes left in the program. We're talking about the Milestones Project. Again, the website is ycesa.com, bottom right-hand corner of that page. What if I'm a parent? Now, you mentioned that if I come to you and say, Tim Carter, Steve Gesell, my child is, I found this in their room and this, it's a problem. That's not going to work that way. What if I go to, what if I'm concerned about my kid and I can't afford mental health help? I can't afford some of these other services that are coming through the Milestones Project. What if I go to a school superintendent and say, hey, you know, I've got this concern about my child, blah, 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 and can they initiate that for the parent?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
So there's a little loophole right there.
Any one of our partnering agencies can initiate it. Okay. And typically, great majority of the time, these referrals either come through the school. Or through law enforcement. Mm. So we have subcommittees that we've talked about and a steering committee. Steve serves on both of those. So we have a law enforcement chief on this side, and we have a school administrator on this side of the mountain. So any referrals that come from the Verde Valley would go to one of those two people, and they would convene that smaller team, and they would look at the issue, and then they would determine, yes, we think this is a milestone student, we're going to refer it to the steering committee. We have two people on the other side of the mountain, Police Chief Black in Prescott, and one of our assistant principals at Prescott High School. So anything on the other side of the mountain or in the western part of the county goes to them. So it's kind of it's a check on the system. So if it came through law enforcement and Steve looked at it with that other law enforcement officer and he says, I just don't think this meets the criteria, it would literally stop right there. But if Steve says, yeah, I think this is legitimate, then he would put that team together. And again, within 24 hours, and a lot of times it's within 7 or 8 hours. And so you do have to go through a progression of different folks looking at what happened to make a determination about, yes, we think this is a situation where we need to provide services.
Okay.
And it's important to reiterate that these types of discussions are congruent with whatever action the school has probably already taken if it happened in the school, or if it was a law enforcement contact, or mental health. If they, we have fabulous relationships on both sides of the mountain. On this side, it's with Spectrum, and we have a mobile crisis unit, and there's another conduit or avenue where information can get to us through mental health, where we convene on this side and we would address it, much like we did in the example that I gave you.
God, I loved how you said that it's working together on both sides of the mountain like that. There's been years where that mountain has really kind of split. Tim Carter knows this, that it just kind of splits the county in half.
It's a problem sometimes.
But yeah, it is, but it's nice to hear that mountain is, I've been trying to do that for 27 years here, and it's nice to see that the mountain is not quite as big as it used to be. Let's put it that way. So I think this is great. We're out of time. So YCESA.com website. Go there, read up about Milestones Project, and then we can go from there. But hopefully we don't have to use it too often, right?
Fantastic.
Chief Gesell, thank you for coming in. Tim Carter, always good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, again, YCESA.com. That is today's Countywide. Thank you as always for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.